Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you've been taught to pursue, every milestone you've been told defines a good life, was never actually yours to begin with. The job, the relationships, the possessions neatly stacked as proof of your progress. All of it designed around a single, glittering promise: happiness. But what if that promise itself was a mirage? A trap cleverly disguised as salvation? What if the very act of chasing happiness ensured you would never truly experience it? You see, happiness is often spoken of as though it were a treasure at the end of a long road, waiting patiently for you once you've endured enough struggle, earned enough recognition, or gathered enough wealth. It's presented as something linear. Do this, achieve that, and one day you will arrive. But doesn't it strike you as odd that no matter how much you achieve, the horizon always seems to move further away? That what once felt like joy fades so quickly, replaced by another craving, another milestone, another if only. It is a paradox as old as human thought. The more desperately we seek happiness, the more elusive it becomes. Like trying to clutch water in your fist, the tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. And yet, isn't it strange how society never questions this pursuit? Advertisements promise it, influencers sell it, and self-help books map endless blueprints to achieve it. But if everyone is chasing it, why does almost no one feel they've truly caught it? Imagine the unsettling possibility that happiness, the very thing you've built your life around, may not be a destination at all. Imagine it being a trap set by your own mind, clever mechanism of survival dressed up as meaning. What if this endless pursuit wasn't a flaw in your journey, but rather the design itself? Stop for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you told yourself, if I can just get this one thing, then I'll be happy? Did it work? Or did your mind quietly replace the target the moment you reached it? A new salary, a bigger house, a more perfect body. Even love, once attained, grows restless under the weight of expectation. Why does the finish line always vanish when we arrive? Here lies the great question that shadows us all. Is happiness something we can ever truly possess, or is it only ever something we chase? Perhaps the more terrifying question is this: do you even want happiness? Or do you simply want the chase itself? The drama, the struggle, the endless horizon that keeps you moving? Because what happens when you finally arrive? What happens when there is nothing left to pursue? If happiness is the end, would that mean the end of desire? The end of growth? Maybe even the end of life's fire itself? This is the unsettling paradox. The very thing we believe will complete us may actually rob us of what makes us feel alive. We don't just chase happiness, we are addicted to the chase itself. And like all addictions, it feeds us in tiny doses while hollowing us from within. Consider how fragile happiness seems to be when you look at it closely. It depends on circumstances, moods, hormones, weather, timing, and expectations. It rises in a moment, only to dissolve in the next. Yet, entire lives are built upon this fleeting sensation, as though it were solid ground. Isn't it strange, almost absurd, to anchor our existence on something so unstable? What if the pursuit of happiness was never the real pursuit at all? What if beneath this glittering word, what we truly crave is something deeper, darker, and far more dangerous to admit? Something like meaning, or freedom, or the raw intensity of simply being alive without needing to justify it with joy. And so, you stand at the edge of a haunting realization. Perhaps the greatest illusion of modern life is not that happiness exists, but that it must be chased. What if happiness is not the prize, but but the trap, the bait placed just far enough ahead to keep you running, never questioning why you're running in the first place. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine that everything you've been running toward has been nothing more than a carefully constructed mirage, keeping you distracted from the truth. Would you dare stop? Would you dare stand still long enough to face what lies beneath the chase? Because here is the unspoken truth. If you stop running, you may not find happiness. You may find something far more terrifying yourself. And that is where our journey begins. The hidden problem and its psychological, philosophical roots, Section 2. The first wound is always invisible. It hides not in the body, but in the restless whisper of the mind that says, "This isn't enough." From the moment you begin to desire, you begin to suffer, because desire plants the seed of incompleteness. And that seed grows into the illusion that something is missing, that happiness lies just beyond your reach. But where does this whisper come from? Why does the human mind insist that no matter what you achieve, it is never enough? Philosophers and psychologists alike have wrestled with this riddle for centuries. Schopenhauer, the grim philosopher of pessimism, argued that life itself is a ceaseless oscillation between pain and boredom. Desire creates suffering because it is longing, and once fulfilled, that longing collapses into emptiness. And so the cycle begins anew: yearning, fulfillment, and then the dull ache of dissatisfaction. If Schopenhauer is right, then the pursuit of happiness is doomed from the start. It is the very structure of desire that betrays us. Carl Jung approached the problem differently. He saw the chase for happiness not as a personal failure, but as a symptom of our fractured psyche. We project happiness outward onto goals, possessions, and other people, because we are unwilling to confront the shadows within. Happiness becomes a mask we wear to avoid facing our darker selves. But the mask grows heavy, and soon we confuse the performance for reality. Are you truly happy, or are you merely playing the role of someone who appears to be? Nietzsche, on the other hand, mocked the very idea of happiness as the highest aim. To him, the pursuit of comfort and contentment was the morality of the herd sheep, striving only for safety. What he demanded instead was something fiercer: the embrace of struggle, the will to power, the courage to affirm life even in suffering. For Nietzsche, the obsession with happiness revealed a weakness, a refusal to face the tragic beauty of existence. To live fully, he believed, was not to seek happiness, but to will something greater, something beyond fleeting joy. And then there is Viktor Frankl, whose insights were forged in the horror of concentration camps. He discovered that those who survived the unspeakable did not do so because they were happy. They survived because they had meaning, something to live for, something larger than themselves. Happiness, Frankl argued, cannot be pursued at all. It is a byproduct, a shadow cast by the pursuit of meaning. The more you chase happiness directly, the more it slips away. But when you dedicate yourself to purpose, happiness often finds you quietly, unbidden. So here we are, caught between philosophers and psychologists, between desire and despair. What they all circle around is this hidden problem. The human mind is wired not for happiness, but for survival. Happiness was never the goal of evolution. Our ancestors did not endure storms, starvation, and predators because they were joyful. They endured because they were vigilant, restless, and unsatisfied enough to keep moving. That dissatisfaction, which once kept us alive, now drives us mad. It is as if the very machinery of survival has turned against us in the modern age. Think about it. Every time you reach a goal, your brain floods you with dopamine. But dopamine is not happiness, is anticipation. It is the promise that something good is coming, not the enjoyment of what has arrived. The moment you achieve what you wanted, dopamine vanishes, and the cycle begins again. Neurologically speaking, your brain is less interested in your joy than in keeping you chasing the next reward. It dangles happiness before you like a carrot before a horse, and you run and run and run. Culture only sharpens this trap. From the time you were a child, you were told stories about happiness as the ultimate prize. Fairy tales ended with happily ever after, as though happiness were a final resting place. Schools praised achievement as a pathway to joy. Advertisements whispered that the right clothes, the right car, the right face cream would unlock bliss. Social media became a stage where everyone curated the illusion of joy, creating a collective hallucination that happiness is not only attainable but mandatory. To admit unhappiness is to admit failure, and so the trap tightens. But what if the real problem is not that we fail to catch happiness, but that we misunderstand what we are chasing? Imagine for a moment that happiness is not a solid state, but a flicker of fleeting spark that cannot be held. To treat it as permanent is to misunderstand its nature, like mistaking a lightning strike for the sun. The mind, however, refuses to accept this. It demands permanence. It demands certainty. And so, it builds an elaborate game of if-onlys. If only I had this, if only I achieved that, then I would finally be content. But here lies the bitter irony. Even when you get what you want, happiness never arrives in the way you imagined. Instead, it dissolves into something ordinary. The extraordinary becomes mundane. The dream becomes daily life, and the mind invents a new goal to keep you moving forward. This is not an accident, it is the design. And so, the hidden problem reveals itself. The human psyche is trapped in a loop of longing, fulfillment, and emptiness. Philosophy warned us. Psychology explained it. Neuroscience confirmed it. But none of these insights have been enough to free us, because the problem is not merely intellectual, it is existential. This is the truth most of us avoid. Happiness is not denied to us by accident. It is denied to us by structure, by the very architecture of desire. And as long as we remain blind to this, we will continue to chase shadows, mistaking them for light. But what happens when this structure begins to shape not only individual lives, but entire societies? What happens when the endless chase for happiness is not just a private obsession, but a cultural commandment? That is when the consequences begin to emerge, not subtle, but devastating. And that is where we must go next. The unseen consequences, Section 3. The most dangerous traps are not the ones that confine us with chains, but the ones that seduce us with dreams. The pursuit of happiness is not just a private struggle, it is a cultural commandment that shapes the very fabric of modern life. And like all commandments, it comes with consequences, many of them unseen, many of them corrosive. Consider first the personal cost. The endless chase for happiness sets you up for perpetual dissatisfaction. Even when life is objectively good, when you are safe, healthy, provided. For your mind whispers that something is still missing. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the tendency to quickly return to a baseline of contentment, no matter how much your circumstances improve. You win the lottery, and within a year, you feel the same as before. You buy the dream house, and a few months later, it feels ordinary. The extraordinary always dissolves into the everyday, leaving you hungry again. But the deeper consequence is not just dissatisfaction. It is the quiet shame that comes with it. Because society tells you happiness is a choice. When you fail to feel it, you begin to wonder what is wrong with you. You may even find yourself surrounded by comfort and success, yet plagued by guilt for not feeling grateful enough. It is not only unhappiness you carry, but the burden of believing you should not be unhappy. Thus, the chase becomes not only exhausting, but humiliating. This shame breeds silence. Few people openly admit their unhappiness, for fear of being judged as ungrateful, broken, or weak. Social media deepens the wound because it functions as a hall of mirrors where everyone displays curated fragments of joy. Scroll long enough and you begin to believe you are the only one still searching. In truth, everyone else is chasing too, but no one dares to confess it. The result: a society where everyone feels alone in their unhappiness, even as everyone is suffering the same secret together. Now consider the broader cultural consequences. Entire economies are built on your dissatisfaction. Consumerism thrives because happiness is marketed as a purchasable state. The moment you adapt to one purchase, a new desire is planted. The fashion industry, the tech industry, the wellness industry all survive on your belief that happiness is one transaction away. You are not a customer, you are the raw material of an endless machine that feeds on your longing. This machine extends into politics as well. Leaders promise happiness as prosperity, safety, freedom, or national pride. Yet these promises are never meant to be fulfilled. They are meant to sustain the chase. A society content with what it has cannot be controlled. But a society addicted to an ever-receding horizon will follow any banner, buy any slogan, cast any vote, so long as it promises what they already know they will never catch. Even relationships, the most intimate realm of human life, are poisoned by the chase. Romance is often framed as the ultimate key to happiness. Find the one, and joy will follow. But this belief places unbearable weight on love. Partners are expected not only to share life, but to guarantee perpetual happiness. An impossible task that breeds disappointment, resentment, and collapse. The divorce rates of modern societies are not simply failures of love, they are symptoms of a culture that mistakes love for a permanent state of bliss rather than a dynamic, fragile bond. And what of mental health? Anxiety and depression have surged in an age more prosperous than any before. Paradoxically, the more a culture insists on happiness, the more fragile its people become when they cannot achieve it. If sadness is framed as a defect, then to feel sad is not only painful but shameful. Suffering, once seen as a natural part of existence, becomes taboo, hidden, medicalized, pathologized. Instead of confronting it, we medicate it, numb it, or bury it under distractions. The very human experience of sorrow, which once gave depth to our lives, is now seen as an illness to be eradicated. Yet perhaps the most haunting consequence of all is this: the pursuit of happiness blinds us to meaning. By fixating on feeling good, we overlook the deeper currents of existence. Struggle, the sacrifice, the pain that often carries more truth than joy ever could. A parent caring for a dying child is not happy, but they are immersed in meaning. An artist consumed by their work may not feel joy, but they are alive in creation. Soldiers, saints, rebels, thinkers all who have transformed the world did so not because they were happy, but because they were driven by something larger, something deeper, something far more costly. In our obsession with happiness, we have traded depth for comfort, intensity for safety, and meaning for fleeting pleasure. And yet, comfort without meaning leaves us restless. Pleasure without depth leaves us hollow. We are a civilization surrounded by abundance, yet haunted by a strange emptiness. Is it any wonder then that despair grows quietly in the shadows? that people find themselves asking in private moments of solitude. Why do I feel so empty when I have everything I thought I wanted? This is the silent epidemic of our time. The chase for happiness does not only fail to deliver it, creates the very despair it promised to cure. And because we are taught to believe happiness is both possible and necessary, we cannot stop running. We run until our bodies are exhausted, until our minds are fractured, until our souls grow thin with longing. This is the hidden cost. The more we chase happiness, the more enslaved we become. And yet, like captives staring at their chains, we are afraid to let go, because we believe without happiness we are nothing. But perhaps it is not happiness we truly need to seek. Perhaps there is another path, one that does not depend on dopamine spikes, on consumer promises, or on endless horizons. A path that is older, deeper, and far more radical. The rebellion against the chase does not begin with acquiring more. It begins with daring to question everything we were told about happiness in the first place. And that rebellion is where we now must turn. The rebellion, how to break free, section 4. Every great prison has the same illusion, that its walls are unbreakable. For centuries, humanity has lived within the invisible prison of the happiness chase, believing that running faster, reaching further, and accumulating more would one day set us free. But what if the door has always been unlocked? What if the rebellion does not begin by fighting harder, but by stepping sideways out of the game entirely? The first act of rebellion is stillness. To stop running, to refuse the chase. This is not the stillness of laziness, nor the apathy of despair. It is the radical stillness of standing face to face with life as it is, without bargaining, without demanding joy as payment. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. The rebellion begins here, by daring to exist without justification, by refusing to see life as a means to an end. But stillness alone is not enough. The chase must be replaced, not with another illusion, but with a deeper orientation, the pursuit of meaning. As Viktor Frankl discovered in the darkest of human experiences, happiness cannot be pursued, but meaning can. And when meaning is found, happiness often arrives quietly, like a shadow that follows the form. Meaning is not the same as pleasure. Pleasure fades, meaning deepens. To dedicate yourself to raising a child, to creating art, to healing others, to uncovering truth, to standing against injustice, these pursuits may not always make you happy. They will demand sacrifice, pain, endurance, but they will anchor you in something larger than yourself. And in that anchoring, you discover a paradox. Joy emerges, not as the goal, but as a side effect of living authentically. Another act of rebellion is to reframe suffering. In our culture, suffering is treated as failure. But what if suffering is not the enemy? Nietzsche dared to say, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." If you run from suffering, you run from life itself. But if you lean into it, if you allow pain to carve you deeper, you discover that suffering can be the birthplace of strength, wisdom, and compassion. Happiness tells you to avoid pain. Meaning tells you to transform it. This is not merely philosophy, it is a psychological revolution. Studies in positive psychology show that those who embrace life's struggles with a sense of purpose report higher well-being than those who chase only positive feelings. It is not comfort that sustains us, but coherence, the sense that our lives fit into a larger story, that our struggles matter. So how do you begin this rebellion in your own life? First, by questioning the scripts you've inherited. Ask yourself, whose definition of happiness am I chasing? Did you choose it, or was it chosen for you by parents, peers, advertisements, or culture? To rebel is to rewrite the script, to define value on your own terms. Second, by practicing presence. The chase for happiness is always future-oriented. I'll be happy when. To rebel is to collapse that horizon and see the richness of now. Presence is not about forced positivity. It is about raw awareness. It is the taste of food without distraction, the sound of rain without analysis, the breath in your lungs without condition. Happiness chases more. Presence whispers, enough. Third, by cultivating gratitude, not as a superficial checklist of blessings, but as a deep recognition of the fragile, fleeting miracle of existence itself. Gratitude transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, not by changing what you have, but by changing how you see it. When you can look at even suffering and say, there is something here for me to learn, to grow, to give, you have already escaped the trap. Fourth, by embracing authenticity. Much of unhappiness arises from living lives that do not belong to jobs chosen for security, roles performed for approval, goals pursued for applause. The rebellion is to live in alignment with your true self, even if it costs you comfort, even if it leads you into struggle. Authenticity may not guarantee happiness, but it guarantees truth, and in truth, there is a deeper kind of fulfillment than joy alone can offer. Finally, the rebellion requires courage. To reject the chase for happiness is to reject one of the most sacred idols of modern culture. People will not understand. Some will call you lazy, bitter, or strange. But remember, every person who ever broke free from the illusions of their age was misunderstood. To step outside the chase is to become dangerous, not in the sense of destruction, but in the sense of freedom. You are no longer predictable, no longer controllably, no longer a consumer of empty promises. This is the rebellion, to refuse to reduce life to a game of endless pursuit, to embrace suffering without shame, to find meaning rather than chase pleasure, to be present rather than always reaching, to live authentically even when the world tells you to perform. And here is the paradox, the same paradox that haunts every seeker. When you stop chasing happiness, when you dare to let it go, it often finds you, not as a permanent state, but as fleeting moments of grace, a laugh shared with a friend, the quiet beauty of a sunset, the pride in enduring struggle, the warmth of a hand held in the dark. These moments cannot be captured, owned, or guaranteed, but they are real, and they are enough. The rebellion is not about gaining happiness. It is about freeing yourself from its tyranny. It is about discovering that life, in all its joy and suffering, is already whole. And yet, beyond rebellion lies something even greater. A truth so profound that it does not simply shift your perspective, but dissolves the very ground you've been standing on. The final realization does not just free you from the chase. It transforms the way you see reality itself. That ultimate truth is what we must now uncover. The ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization, Section 5. Imagine, for a moment, that you let go completely. No more bargaining with life. No more whispering promises to yourself that joy will arrive tomorrow. Imagine standing in the middle of your existence, exactly as it is, messy, incomplete, unpredictably, and realizing you no longer need it to be otherwise. What would that feel like? At first, it feels terrifying. To release the chase is to step into the unknown. If you are not moving toward happiness, then what is left? emptiness, despair. The mind resists because it has been trained to run since birth. But then, slowly, something astonishing emerges in that stillness. A truth so radical it collapses the very structure of the chase. The truth is this: life is not about happiness at all. Life is about aliveness. Happiness is a mood, a fleeting spark in the endless current of existence. But aliveness is the raw, unfiltered experience of being here, now, in all its textures. Joy and sorrow, triumph and loss, love and heartbreak, beauty and terror. To live fully is not to secure happiness, but to embrace everything without condition. Think about it. What do you remember most vividly in your life? Was it the times you were merely comfortable, basking in fleeting joy? Or was it the moments that broke you open, that demanded you face yourself, that forced you to feel the full weight of existence? Births, deaths, first loves, last goodbyes. The nights of despair that taught you resilience. The mornings of clarity that remade you. These are not always happy moments, but they are alive. And being alive, fully and fiercely, is far greater than being happy. Here lies the deepest irony. The happiness you've been chasing was never the point. It was a shadow, a side effect of living authentically, courageously, and meaningfully. When you stop demanding happiness from life, you discover that life itself is enough. This is why mystics across traditions have spoken of surrender. The Zen monk does not sit in meditation to capture happiness, but to dissolve the illusion of a self that must grasp at it. The Stoic does not cultivate virtue for joy, but for strength, knowing that joy follows in its wake. The mystic poet Rumi wrote, "Try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, even if they seem like destruction." They understood what modern culture forgets, that happiness is not a goal, but a guest arriving when it pleases, leaving when it must. To live chasing happiness is to live as a beggar, always asking life for more. To live embracing aliveness is to live as a king, recognizing that everything, the pain, the loss, the joy, the beauty is already yours. So what does this mean for you, here and now? It means you can stop running. You can stop measuring your life against the illusion of permanent joy. You can stop treating unhappiness as failure. You can breathe, and in that breath, you can recognize that you are already immersed in the great mystery you are seeking. You are not meant to be happy every moment. You are meant to be alive every moment. But there is more. This ultimate truth does not merely free you from the chase, it invites you into a different way of being. It asks you to see yourself not as a seeker of happiness, but as a creator of meaning. It asks you to embrace suffering, not as punishment, but as the forge that shapes your soul. It asks you to live with presence, because every breath, every heartbeat, every fleeting second is the very miracle you are waiting for. Look closely, and you will see. Happiness was never absent. It was hidden in plain sight, woven into the fabric of aliveness. It appears in the laughter that bursts unexpectedly, in the beauty of a sunset that needs no reason, in the quiet pride of enduring hardship. Happiness is not a destination. It is a ripple across the surface of a much deeper ocean, and that ocean is your life itself. The final, most powerful realization is this: you do not need to chase happiness because you are already standing inside the very thing you seek. Happiness is not out there, waiting for you. It flickers through you, around you, within you, whenever you surrender the chase and allow yourself to be fully alive. So let the world keep running. Let advertisements shout their promises. Let society sell its endless blueprints for joy. You have seen the illusion. You have touched the truth. You know now that happiness cannot be caught because it was never meant to be. Instead, live. Live with meaning. Live with courage. Live with presence. Live with love. Live with pain. Live with beauty. Live with sorrow. Live with joy when it comes, and with silence when it does not. Live not as a chaser of shadows, but as a witness to the vast, luminous mystery of existence. For in the end, the great secret is not how to be happy, it is how to be alive. And once you know that happiness is no longer a prize to chase, it is the quiet companion that walks beside you, wherever the road may lead.